In this lesson, we're going to take a look at slope and how to write parallel and perpendicular equations to lines. So go ahead and try that warm up, push pause, try it, and check when you're ready. All right, double check your warm up answers. So slope, let's review slope. Slope is rise over run, kind of from left to right if we're looking at a graph. So this would be a positive slope, and going up from left to right. This would be a negative slope, going down from left to right. This would be a 0, and this would be an undefined. All right, so let's go ahead and find the slope. For AB, we are 0. For AC, we're going down, down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. Nope, actually, we're not going down 1, right 1. It looks like we are. Let's go from point to point. That is kind of our best way to find slope. So we're actually going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So down 5 and right 6. There we go. So sometimes it looks like it might be down 1 over 1, but make sure you go from a point to a point, then we know for sure. All right, so AD is this vertical line that is undefined. And CD, we're going to go up 1 and right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1 over 6. Parallel lines, they have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite, so we change the sign, and then reciprocal. We flip it. Slope. So two things we got to do. Vertical and horizontal lines, those are perpendicular. All right, so let's go ahead and identify what would be a parallel slope. If our slope is A over B, it's going to be the same, A over B. Then we're going to flip it and change it to a negative. For this one, -2, it would be the same. And how do we flip a -2? Well, think about it, it's over 1, so it's going to be 1 over 2, and then it's going to turn positive. Number 3 is going to be 2/3 for parallel, because it's, again, the same. And then this one is a flip, and change the sign. So flip, 3 over 2, change the sign. 0, it would be 0, the same, and then undefined is its kind of opposite reciprocal. So again, a 0 is kind of like a horizontal, and then perpendicular to that would be a vertical line, and it has an undefined slope. So undefined, we would have an undefined for parallel, and then we'd have a 0 slope for perpendicular. So let's look at these and determine if they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So we're going to look at their slope, 6, -1 over 6. So they are opposite reciprocals, so they are perpendicular. 3 and 1/3. Well, they are reciprocals, but they're not opposite. So they are oblique or neither. Whatever you want to write there. But oblique means neither. This one, we need to get those or those y's alone, so we're going to divide by 2 for that top equation. And then for the bottom equation, we're going to subtract the 2x first, then we'll divide everything by 3 to get y alone, get it into slope-intercept form so we can see what the slopes are. So -2/3 x minus 1. So now I can see that my slope for this one is a -2/3. My slope for this one is a -3 over 2. They're both negative, and but they're reciprocals, but they have the same sign. They're not opposite reciprocals. So this one again is a neither or oblique. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, and I did plot these points, but we need to go through and label them. So 0, 2, this one is your U. -1, -1 is your V. And we're going to go ahead and connect those for a line. And then my other line is going to be, let's label those points. So this one is 3, 1x, and this one is -3, 3y. And then we're going to connect those for a line. So let's go ahead and identify our slopes. So for UV, the slope is up 1, 2, 3 over 1. And then for x, y, my slope is down 1 over 3. So these are perpendicular because I can see that my slopes are opposite reciprocals. You can go ahead and use the slope formula to calculate it, but it is kind of easier just to graph it and then count rise over run. But it's totally up to you. There's the reminder of that slope formula. If you didn't want to graph it, you could use that and find your slopes for each with that formula. All right, let's go ahead and practice writing some equations. So point slope form is up here, where we plug in a point, an x1, y1, and then we plug in the slope m. And then we are going to be distributing and getting it into slope intercept form down here. But first, we're just going to practice plugging it into the right spots and leaving it in point slope for these first few. So it's y minus y1 equals m, x minus x1. I'm going to go ahead and label all of my pieces up here so we can see where they go. This is my m, this is my x1, this is my y1. So I'm going to go ahead and replace my y1 here with an 8. I'm going to replace my x1 with a negative 10 and my m with a negative 3/5. And then I'm just going to bring everything else down. And one thing you can do is just do y minus and then leave a blank and everything else. Because the key thing is we want to remember that we bring down this minus here. So this minus is a part, or this negative, it goes with the 10, but we need the minus there, and we need the minus there. So now what we're going to do down here is we would distribute, but we're just going to change this to a plus because it's a double negative, and then we have it written in point slope form. So in these first few, we're just practicing plugging in. So I want you to try this one. Just practice plugging in your m, your x1, and your y1 into point slope form. So pause. Plug it in like we did on this first one, and then push play and check when you're ready. All right, so here is kind of our form written out, and then we're going to plug in those pieces. Our m, our y1 goes here, our x1 goes here, and then change any double negatives. So that's what you should have written. Let's go ahead and try actually writing our equation. So we're going to start off with figuring out what slope we need. We have our point. We're going to plug it into point slope like we practiced up above, and then we're going to be distributing because we want to get it into slope intercept form. So a little additional step after that. So what is the slope given? It's given here 5/2, and then we don't really need this anymore. Okay. The slope that we're going to use, well, we're trying to find parallel. So if we're using parallel, we would use the same slope 5/2. So that's my m. Up here is my x1 and my y1. So just like we did up above, we're going to plug that in to point slope. So here comes my m. My y1 goes here -9. My x1 goes here -6. So I got two double negatives. I need to go ahead and change those. And now I'm going to distribute. So I want to get it into slope intercept, which means I need y alone. So I need to do the distributing and then get that y alone. So 5/2 x, 5 times 6. So we're going to take 5 times 6, that's 30. And then 30 over 2, hey, that's 15. So I can go ahead and put a plus 15, right? Because that's 30 over 2. 5 times 6 over 2. And then I'm going to do one last step to get y alone, and that's subtract the 9. So y equals 5/2 x plus 6. That is my final answer. So on this next one, we're doing another parallel. Go ahead and try it. Identify your slope. Identify a parallel slope, so the same slope. And then plug it in using this x1 and this y1. Distribute. And push play and check when you're ready. The slope for this equation is 2, so you're going to use the same slope 2 since we're looking for parallel. We're going to use the x1 and y1 over here, -2, 3, and so I put the 3 here, I put the -2 here, which makes a double negative. I distribute the 2, 2x plus 4, add 3, and there's my final answer. We're going to take a look lastly at perpendicular. So this time my slope, if it's -3/4, I'm going to flip it and then I'm going to change its sign. So I'm going to be using this as my m, and this is my x1, this is my y1, and I don't need anything else from that equation. Just pulling the slope from it. Now I'm going to plug this in to my form. So y minus, and then I'm going to go ahead and put all my other pieces in here, y minus, and then my y1 equals, and then my slope, my perpendicular slope, and then x minus my x1, which was 7. So then I'm going to distribute 4/3 x, and then I'm going to take 4 times 7 and then divide by 3. So 28 divided by 3. And that is 9 1/3. And then I'm going to add 1 to it. And so I've got 4/3 x plus 10 1/3. And there's my final answer. Go ahead and try this last one, perpendicular. Make sure that you are flipping and changing your sign because we're doing perpendicular. Then plug it in and distribute and check when you're ready. So just double checking halfway through, make sure that you've got your 1/2 that you're using as your slope because we flipped it and we changed the sign. Remember 2 is over 1, so 1/2 and then it changes to positive. So make sure your slope is 1/2. You plugged in your -10, you plugged in your 4, this changed to a double negative changed to a positive. Now go ahead and distribute and then get y alone. Distributing the half, 1/2 x minus 2, so half of 4 is 2, and then minus 10. So y equals 1/2 x minus 12.